When it comes to the compiler, it will try to encapsulate the different compilation stages to, first of all, minimize overall execution time of the build procedure, and this can be done by preventing the generation of those intermediate files like the preprocessed one, assemblant one, and so on. Second thing, it will prevent the user from modifying and changing those intermediate files, which may impact overall result and generated binary file. And third thing is to have more readable and user-friendly build procedure. So this build procedure then will consist of some small makefile rules just to trigger basically the compilation to get the final objects file and then the final binary. However, in some use cases, the developers may want to have better control over the whole compilation stages to be able, for instance, to do some extra pre-processing on the intermediate files before it gets inserted or given as input to the next compilation stage. Also to understand or debug some issues that may occur during one of those stages. I mean, the compiler is not, let's say, we may have some compiler that not fully functional, and therefore we may need some time to understand if the issue is coming from the compilation stage or from our source file. Therefore, we want to generate all intermediate files, and then we look into the output of each compilation stage, and then we may spot basically some issues there. Now to do so, we need to explicitly to provide to the compiler some inputs or some options to tell it, please generate those intermediate files, and don't do this kind of encapsulation by doing the whole procedure in one single step. For the preprocessing, the preprocessing means the generation of those preprocessed file. The flag to be provided to the compiler to do so is the -e. In this case, we need to create or to add another option here is called -e. This will tell the compiler to explicitly generate the preprocessed file with the extension .e and then do not do the compilation. Means the provided input source to the compiler will be just preprocessed, and the outcome will be the preprocessed file .e. That's it. And it is up to user actually to add extra rules to take as input the preprocessed one and then proceed with the build procedure. Therefore, we need to do some modification in our make files to add those extra rules to handle basically the .e files. First of all, we have those makefile rules. As we can see, the .c get compiled to generate the .o. In our case, this will not be valid anymore. With this option -e, as you can see, we have added here this. The outcome will not be an object file. It will be .e file. And the .e, I mean, is just a pre-processed file, I mean, with some expansion of some macros, some absolute path to the headers, and so on. Now to go to the final object file, then we need to take this .e file, and then we provide it as input to the next compilation stages. So we need to create additional makefile rules, like the following, and then the output will be the object file, and the input will be this guy here, so the .e file. So far so good. Of course, here we'll need to remove this option -e, because here we want to compile, not to do the pre-processing. So I explicitly added this option here to instruct the compiler to do the pre-processing and stop. And here I remove this -e so that the compiler can take this as input source, parse it, compile it, and generate the object file out of it. Based on that, actually, we don't need to provide this option, as we will have kind of redundancy, first of all, when we are generating the pre-processed one, and then we'll not have the expected behavior if we are going to generate the object file out of the pre-processed one, as we will have the -e again available. So this is done. Now we have the rule to compile the different drivers. As you can see, this is a let's say a macro define or makefile macro define. So we need to go to the makefile support, and then we need to modify this guy here. So we have this rule To take the .c, there is .e. This is okay. Of course, we need to specify the -e here. Then this guy will be as an input to the next stage, and the outcome will be the object file. And here we don't need to specify the -e. So let's take another look here to be sure. So this looks okay. This looks okay so far. From -c, we are from the .c we are generating the .e, and then this is provided as input to generate the .o. So far so good. Now let's try to compile everything. So far so good. So we were able actually to generate this .elf. So the compilation was success. And we can go to the build folder and see the .elf. Nevertheless, when we look into the object files or the object directories, we see the .o, the .dependency, for those are for the headers, but we don't see the .i. And if we look into the logs, we can see that there is an extra step which is added by the makefile. This is not intentional or done by us. Is consistent of removing basically this .e file. Actually, the makefile sees those files as intermediate ones, and there is no need actually to keep them. So it is removing all those files. To keep them, we need to instruct to the makefile that we need those files, or we need those intermediate preprocessed one. Therefore, we can include what is called this magic word .secondary, and can state that we want all objects and all .e file. This will tell the makefile that those files are important and we don't want to remove them actually. So let's give it a try. Let's do a clean. So we don't have anymore this additional line that is removing this .e files. And if we go to the object, we can see all those preprocessed ones. And if we open one of them, so we can see that the preprocessor is providing the absolute path basically for the different headers that has been included and used as part of our sources, as you can see. Also different types which are part of those headers, and many additional information. By the end of the day, this is a pure C code, and it can be compiled without any issue. The only difference is that now we have all macro expanded, all paths to different headers has been included, all defines and so on has been provided in one single file. And here, of course, we can insert some additional macros. We can do some pre-processing into this file before we send them basically to the next compilation stage. And this is why we are having better control over different compilation stages.